everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Ray. In this video, I'm going to teach you about the intelligence that is behind your manifestation abilities. My idea is that instead of doing just another how-to video, we will dive into the infrastructure of reality and understand the fundamentals and beauty of this amazing system. When we understand how something actually works, it's much easier for us to utilize it in the way that it was meant to be actually used. I would actually watch this whole video a couple of times because I go into things that are far more complicated than my regular or my average videos. Plus, I'm going to provide you with a lot of examples and a summary in the end. So, stay tuned. All elements of our universe have life and intelligence embedded into them. What can be referred to as awareness to their provided job. In other words, consciousness and love are embedded into everything, and everything is conscious to some degree. Everything is actually made of some sort of divine intelligence, including people, including what makes us human, which is our separation from that divine intelligence. There is a hierarchy of separateness, beginning with all that is, which can actually be referred to as the absolute or everything or God, down to dimensions, universes, galaxies, stars, planets, and so forth, until the smallest molecule and the smallest subatomic particle. Now, these elements or particles, no matter their size, are attracted one to the other by multiple variables: their common job, their size, and their attributes. Their main goal is to be. They are constantly moving because life is movement and movement is life. Life is change and change is life. For example, the cells in our body have a job. The sun has a job. The mountains, water, protein, all of these things have job and a purpose to fulfill. Now, they know their job. They are born, they do their job, and they die or transform energetically into something else. They simply are. They are not sentient like we are, where we question our existence, but they are, to some level, conscious. Cells, for example, which is a great example, cells of our body, communicate with other cells. They clean themselves up, they have intelligence, they know what type of cell they are, and they know what their intended purpose is. A single particle or element has a will of its own, but it has no actual need. Therefore, alignment was created. Remember this. Alignment is when a small element or particle aligns itself to the power or the will of an element that is larger than it is. And this is how actually all of nature works. The greater the force is, the greater its pull on the small elements within its range of effect. And the same goes for the greater element. It is affected by the element that is bigger than it is, by its will, by its general direction. For example, for alignment. As human beings, we have the most amount of effect over our bodies. The body's first elemental breakdown is the organs, then the cells, then the core of the cell, the different molecules that reside inside the cells, and furthermore down to the DNA and subatomic particles and stuff like that. But naturally, each cell aligns itself to its organ, which aligns itself to the host. The host, according to their belief, thought, and feelings they have towards the body itself, change the direction of the organ, change the direction of the cell. Some people will create sickness, some people will create health, some even obesity, some strength, and some even super unnatural abilities. This is, by the way, why the placebo effect works so well on people. On a spiritual level, human beings align themselves to the greater energetic elements such as faith or religion or the intention of the soul group that they belong to. On a physical level, people align themselves to the planet. So in other words, we as a small element or particle align to something that is bigger than we are, just like our organs and our cell align to our will and strength. Our will is not as strong as the direction that the planet takes, for example, and this is why we align ourselves to it. We may be victims for bad weather or a natural disaster without having any ability to change it. However, when we come in masses, when people come in masses, we have more influential power as our will and intention aggregates, and we can influence weather or other large phenomena that we thought that we actually couldn't. Planets, in their turn, are influenced by their star, like planet Earth is bombarded by solar activity and solar rays that provide it with life and set the general direction that it is headed in space and time. The sun and our distance from the sun also affects the planet by the weather itself. In other words, the planet has no will of its own, but it has to align itself to something that is greater than it is. And one day we'll probably find out that the star, our sun, aligns itself to the will of the galaxy or to the direction of the galaxy. There is so much I can tell you about that, but it's really not for this fundamental manifestation video. So, what happens when a bunch of people come together, or a bunch of cells or organs come together in their will, which doesn't really happen because they don't have our free will? Their joint power of the people that chose to come together and chosen direction can heal, can change weather, can drop violence, can do so many other things, and this has actually been proven. There has been a study that brought a lot of people that meditated together in order for them to bring down the violence in a particular city for a particular duration of time. And it began in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken, and they statistically measured the amount of calls the police had and the amount of complaints the police had in that duration of time, and they saw that there was a difference of about 20 to 30%. So when people come together, their intention and their will become stronger than everything that is around it. In other words, their alignment is now not as powerful, and it doesn't have to influence them as before, where we were victims. Now, on a personal level, if we wish for the creational particles to be attracted to us, we actually use our thoughts. Our will creates the intention creates the thoughts create the action, and the action brings the result that we so crave for. But our thoughts have different origins. It can be a subconscious thinking that we can't control, based on our belief systems, our traumas. It can come from the will of the body, like when we have a craving. So the body signals to us that the inner elements inside actually want or need something. But in the end, our alignment works best over our life and our body. In other words, the individual, the one person, the person that is viewing this right now, you have the most amount of power over your body. Now, I know this is complicated, so I'm going to say it again. I'm going to summarize this because it's very, very important. Every basic element, from the individual soul to the fundamental energetic unit in the body, has a will or intention which is unique, its unique expression, and it has a job, or it needs to be something. Now, every particle or element is in constant movement, because movement and change is a fundamental principle of life's expression, and it wishes to serve its goal by being what it was meant to be, part of a beautifully orchestrated reality. This will, or its manifestation power, is in direct ratio to its size. So the elemental size, the smaller the size, the less effect it has. The bigger the size, the more effect we have. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. The smaller particle will have the smallest will. The bigger particle that are created from large groups of smaller particles that are attracted to them have a stronger will and more influence over our life, reality, manifestation power, whatever it is that we want to call it. In fact, when we understand life this way, we understand that if everything is the one creator, then that one creator is the largest elemental piece that there is out there. And this is the reason that the entire universe moves according to the divine will and the divine plan. We will all align ourselves through a hierarchy of elements and particles to the divine will, whether we want to or not. This is why so many of us feel that there is something that is called destiny, that it actually exists, and that there is a perfect plan that we're following. And maybe we don't fully understand it just yet, but when we become more aware of it, we understand it. Therefore, what ignites this whole engine is actually your will, your focus, your intentions, and the will and focus of everything that you are embedded into. So family, religion, humanity, soul group, planet Earth, and etc., etc. There's so many things that we are embedded to on multiple levels: spiritual level, emotional level, physical level. And from that, we can continue to understand that you are the master of your body. You are the master of your thoughts, you are the master of your emotions, and this is what is actually under your control. And at the same time, you serve a purpose. You simply are. You are something. You have a job to do here. You have a designation of some sort, a destiny that you are aligned to the will of something that is higher than you are. And this brings me to my second point. In the book of Seth Speaks, Seth goes on to explain that underneath what we define as subatomic particles, there are much, much, much smaller invisible particles that are the grid of all of creation. This will help you understand your own power as co-creators. So, these little invisible particles of creation are scattered throughout the universe in different concentrations. On Earth, for example, there are a few places that have more of these. One of them is Sedona, the other one is Mount Shasta, in South Africa, in Hawaii, in the Great Pyramids, and many other places. But they are scattered all over the place. Now, the job of these particles is to create. They can create matter, which is just a large amount of moving energy. They can create time dilation, experiences. They are the ones running our show, moving things around, making us experience what we experience, meeting people that we need to meet, doing things in life. When a large enough of these come together, they have the power to create changes in life. When it's in perfect harmony with the divine plan, of course. The way that you can bring these particles together and instruct them to the direction that you actually want to have is fueled by your emotions. A higher vibrational individual will be able to attract more of these subatomic elements than a person of a low vibrational nature. The longer you get excited, the longer you think about something that you want, the more of these particles you actually attract and the more doors actually open in your life. Now, of course, the opposite can happen, and this is what happens to most people, what they do is that they focus on what it is that they don't actually want, which in turn attracts these invisible particles of creation, which have no opinion and just do their job, which is to manifest whatever it is that the person is focused on in their beliefs and emotions. This is why you actually see that people that really believe in themselves succeed in life, no matter the circumstances, no matter whether you think it's luck or not, it's just the way that this works. They attract more of these invisible particles of creation, using their focus, their will, and their emotions that drive the engine, that fuel the engine up. This also explains clearly how the law of attraction actually works, from that book, The Secret. We are constantly surrounded by these invisible particles of creation, and therefore we always create. Free will can be both amazing and in the same time it can also suck. Why? Because we don't have that control that we thought over our mind, over our emotions. So, one more time, let's review for one more second what we learned in this video so far. Number one, each element particle has the amount of energy in relation to its size. Number two, smaller particles align to larger particles, but larger particles are built from multiple smaller particles or elements. Number three, we align to planet Earth. Our body, our organs, and the circumstances of our lives can align to our own energy, our own focus, our own will. Number four, the smallest invisible creational particles attract themselves to us by our focus, will, belief, thoughts, and our emotions. Number five, God, creation, the absolute, the divine will, whatever it is that you want to call it, is the ultimate larger particle that everything else is embedded into. And its will, focus, and the divine plan influences the movement of universes, galaxies, dimensions, star systems, solar planets, soul groups, and so forth until it reaches us. What can we understand from this? What can we learn? What can we change from this? A few things. Number one, we have more control over our life, but not over our destiny. Number two, when we master awareness over our thoughts and emotions, we become masters of our creation, because we learn to attract more of those invisible manifestation particles of creation, and we learn more how to utilize and align the things that are below us to our will and focus. Number three, we need to let go and allow our guidance and the elements that are above us to guide us, because we align to their will. And if we're not in alignment, we feel it, as our emotions and our body tells us that something is really, really off. Like having a job that we don't like waking up next to someone that we no longer appreciate, and many, many other examples of misalignment. Number four, from our point in time and space, we can't really see the whole picture of the elements that are above us, and the bigger picture, as one might say. However, As we progress as human beings spiritually, we are allowed to peek over the wall. Through our intuition, through our guidance, we start seeing the bigger picture, which is the beautiful part of working on ourselves. Now, there are many other things that will make sense to you once you understand these two principles. The first principle is the alignment principle, and the second principle is those invisible particles of creation that come to you when you're focused, when you are feeling something, when you're excited about something. Also, as you master control over your subatomic elements and your will actually drive them, it will be very wise of you to start making direct contact with your body, your organs, your DNA, and those invisible particles that are around you. Because as I said, everything is conscious to a degree. And when I say contact, I mean actually talk to them, ask them, command them. Tell your body, I want to be back at my 18-year-old body. Tell your body, you have more energy than you think. Tell your body, you don't need as much sleep. Tell your body, you don't need as much food or drink. Just command your body and have a conversation with it. You know, you have to listen, but you also have to talk. You know, it's sort of like a phone call between you and the elements that are embedded inside of you. Now, remember, your imagination is as powerful as your thoughts. Use visualizations, use affirmations, use auto-suggestions, and learn how to dance with your emotions. Learn how to trigger excitement and follow that path of excitement. So, we've come to the end of this video. I highly recommend that you watch this whole video again because it's quite complicated and I've talked quite a lot about this. Learn the two principles, understand how they work, and practice. It's really about the practice. Watching a video on YouTube is not enough. It is about how we integrate this knowledge into our life. It's not only about the mental. Talk to your body. Understand that you're just one particle that is embedded in many, many particles. And understand that everything goes towards down the same way. This is how I heal fast. This is how I never get sick. This is how I became a breatharian. You know, just command and understand the principles of life. This is how the manifestation engine actually works. I know that this subject is a little bit complicated, and this is why I recommend to watch it another time. I hope I simplified it as best as I could for you, and I highly recommend watching this whole video again because it will become much clearer. Namaste, my friends, and I'll see you in my next video.
What?